Okay, so yeah, from the whole list over here, these are actually the list of fighting games that I have played before, at least once. And from this point, I'm gonna go ahead and set it up here. Set up a list. Some of my all-time favorites, whether they're fun, I could have a good time with them. I'm in and out, basically meaning that I play them maybe once or a few times, and it's kind of a recurring thing. Like I would come back to it for my fill. Um, some games that I would barely touch, and some that I have played only once and have not gotten back to at all. So, on that note, we'll go ahead and get straight to it. Starting with Calibur 6. Now, with Calibur 6, I actually downloaded it, I'd say like the first day that it did come out, to try it out. And for me personally, the only thing I really messed with in this game was the story mode. I wanted to try out every character, see if it felt like 2, Calibur 2, which was the only Calibur game that I had played before 6. And, it was okay from time to time. I didn't really mess with it until I met someone you guys may know as Star Deviant. Now, that name should sound familiar for those who have seen some of my recent videos when it comes to streaming some local matches with Star Deviant. She is my girlfriend, Sandy, lovely lady, and she pretty much got me into Calibur 6 from time to time. So honestly, in terms of the list, I would put this in a good time. I wouldn't play this on my own unless I'm having some matches with her. And yeah, sometime soon I hope to actually do a video with Star Deviant and do some matches in Calibur 6. So yeah, that's my history with Calibur, with this one in particular. Brawl is a good time as well. Now with Brawl, I used to play with my cousins back in the day when it first came out. Marth was one of my first mains, just because of the history that I had with him in Melee. I'm not big on the competitive side at Smash. I used to be for, let's say, maybe a month. But in terms of Brawl, the single player content in that game is probably one of the best, like, ever. There's just so many different things that you could do, not just with yourself, but with other people as well, like the home run contests. You got like the story mode inside it. That's probably the best in terms of cutscenes and all that. But with Brawl, you know what? I'm gonna put on very fun. I have a lot of fun playing Brawl with people. Like local, just shenanigans that we just have over there. It's great. Now, Blade Strangers, I have played once, and the only reason that I have really touched this game was because of B-Boy Sonic X. Shout out. So I'll go ahead and put it up played once. These anime style games, I'm personally not huge with. The that's really all I gotta say. I'm not really well experienced with them. It's not that I necessarily hate them, but it's just not for me, you know? Okay, so Dead or Alive 6. This one I have played once, twice, but I'll put it on barely touch because unlike Blade Strangers, I did spend a couple of hours on the story mode and a few just fun local matches with some of my buddies. So there's that. Lethal League Blaze. This one, This one is a very good time. And like the craziness that can happen in the game despite having like what 9 or 10 characters, it doesn't matter. They are extremely fun to play, and playing with 4 people is just extremely chaotic, and I love it. Like, although it gets chaotic, it is controlled chaos, if that would make sense. Super Smash Bros. Melee. Okay. So this one, easy. Very fun. I love it the same reasons that I love Brawl. The single player content is amazing. Like the challenges that you could do in it, the adventure mode that you could do with it, which is the closest thing to story mode. But nonetheless, the characters, like the amount of characters in the game compared to the original Smash Brothers, is like more than double. It goes from 12 to I believe 25, and it's great. So that is Smash Melee. King of Fighters 14. This one I would put on In and Out, mainly because of how much fun I have playing, or how much more fun I have playing another game that we will get to. But in terms of KOF 14, I have put some time with it, but I will kind of come back to it, especially now, just because of the fact that in roughly a week's time, 15 will be out. And you best believe I will be on that one, for sure. So KOF 14, we'll be there. Massive roster. Like, it's huge, especially when all the content in the game is complete. And I best believe that 15 is going to be roughly the same way as well. Melty Blood. Similar thing with Blade Strangers. Haven't really put any time with it. Played it once. And that's pretty much it, you know? But I do respect it for what it is. It does seem like a cool, like, Marvel game without the assists, if that would make sense. Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Oh man, this one. So this one, I don't particularly own in any way, but I do play it whenever I hang out with a specific buddy of mine, and we can have some good time playing it together. It feels very much like Street Fighter 4, intentionally so, you know, with Tekken characters, obviously. But it could be a good time. So, you know what? I'll put it In and Out. Because I don't mind playing this again when I get the chance. Dive Kick, I have played once, and the only reason is just because the fact that I have no access to it whatsoever. Like, I don't have any friends that own it. I don't have the game at all. But the one time that I have played it, it was a blast. Who knows? Who knew? Who knew that you could have so much fun playing a game with literally 2 buttons? It's just that simple. Simple but effective. Iron Galaxy really knocked it out of the park for such a simple game. MK11. Now, this is, I think this is the very first game that I have spent like a huge amount of time in competitively. And I couldn't really give you a reason why. I find it personally to be very fun. You know, a lot of people would prefer MKX over MK11, MK9 over MK11, and you know, that's totally fine. But in terms of the mechanics, in terms of the character roster, like, I have the most amount of time in, I know, but I'm just going from my personal experience, UNB. Doesn't mean I love it more than MKX and MK11. I still think those are better, but I will let you know that I have spent the most amount of time in a Mortal Kombat game in MK11 because I've been playing it since it came out. And I stopped playing it shortly after, the last characters were implemented. So like Rain, Rambo, and Melina. Plus, the story mode was okay. Both versions of the story mode. And the crypt. The crypt is one of the best parts of the game. Let's not lie here. Like, it feels like Disneyland, but in the Mortal Kombat universe. If jump scares and falling to your death were implemented. So, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now, for me personally, the Marvel games, I have stayed away from playing those competitively because it's a little bit too chaotic for me. But in terms of just playing it for fun, oh, you can have a blast with this, man. Like, so for me, this is a good time. I enjoy playing MVC2. I actually have it on the Dreamcast that I got a few months ago, and I'm still working on unlocking the characters. This would technically be on in and out, but the reason why I give it one extra bump up a tier is because when I do play the game, I do have a good time. I enjoy playing it. Dragon Ball Fighterz. So this one, my brother spent more time playing this game than I did. But I will also put it in a good time because I am a personal Dragon Ball fan. I'm not huge on it, especially with like the Super, but for me personally, I enjoy watching the game more than playing it. And it's one of the few games where I can say that. Like, when I watch people play this game, it's a blast, man. It's like watching an actual episode of Dragon Ball Z. Oh, well, that's most of us though, man. But anyways, yeah. So that's Dragon Ball Fighterz. Marvel Infinites. This is in and out. As cool as the logo is for this game, it doesn't compete with Marvel 2. It doesn't compete with Marvel 3. And it definitely does not compete with Dragon Ball. So, Marvel Infinite has gotten a lot of crap because of the story mode, but the saving grace for it is the gameplay. I think that's really the main thing that keeps it from being a game being completely spitted on is the gameplay. But personally, I haven't played the game past the DLC characters. It just wasn't for me. But I also do not mind going back to it for fun. So, Capcom vs. SNK 2. This one is childhood, like, bound. This is just a lot of fun to play. Especially now that I have it on the PS2. It is amazing. Like, the 6 different styles, it feels like Capcom and SNK just bringing their mechanics from previous owned titles and just throwing it all into one game, which is essentially what they did. And it's great. I'll talk more about Tekken 7 when we get there. I have a few things to say about it. But anyways, CVS 2, I had nightmares getting to God Rugal on the arcade and never getting past him. I finally beat that childhood nightmare only recently, playing it on the PlayStation 2. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just punish myself even more and play on the hardest difficulty. Big mistake. But nonetheless, CVS2 is just so much fun, man. I love the music in it. I love the character sprites in it. They're so good, except Morgan. Like, a lot of the game is just almost perfect. Street Fighter Alpha 2 was actually the first Alpha game that I had played, and it is definitely kind of a beta to Alpha 3, but I do still have a good time with it. I played it, the first time I played it was very strange, because I had a small tablet and used an emulator for it on like an SNES emulator, and played Alpha 2 with it. I know it was weird, but nonetheless, like the amount of time that I have played it, I had fun. You know, even seeing like trying to understand why Ryu and Ken, a lot of the characters look so damn young, now makes sense. You know, in terms of understanding the lore better. Okay, so Skullgirls. Okay, so although I'm not huge on tag games, I can't deny that the art in this game is exceptional. I'll easily go in and out with it. My brother loves this game, absolutely loves it. Valentine is his favorite character, obviously, for two big reasons. So, with that being said, Skullgirls, I have played. You know, I put a couple of hours in it. You know, story, the arcade mode, some local matches, all that shabazz. Tekken 7. I'm debating on, do I want it up here or do I want it here? So, with Tekken 7, although it isn't my personal favorite Tekken game, ironically, I have spent probably the most time in it. I'll put it on a good time. And it's not just because of like playing, you know, matches with people, but again, like the single player content in it is great. You know, you got the story mode, which is decent. You know, you wanted to focus on the Heihachi storyline with the Kazuya storyline. Them adding Akuma out of nowhere, it's like the biggest WTF moment. But, and it's not just the story mode, but Tekken Bowling. I did a stream recently with Star Deviant with that. Had a blast. It's always fun. I joke, I joke about bringing Tekken Bowling to tournaments, and a lot of the times that joke ended up becoming a reality, and we do that, and we actually get at least 10 people join the tournament out of nowhere without planning it, and so it's always a good time playing it. But that's enough about bowling in a fighting game. The mechanics in the game, it can feel slow, especially when you go from Soul Calibur to Tekken. The movement is very slow, but intentionally so. The reason why I put it on a good time and not very fun is because I played one character, and you know, Paul Phoenix. That's it. That's who I play, and I really haven't had the interest of playing multiple people. So I think the premise of 3D fighting games is a little weird to me, but I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, shoot, Soul Calibur is also on a good time list. So that's Tekken 7. Street Fighter 5. Now, if I were to do this list when Street Fighter 5 first came out, probably there, to be honest. It's very bare bones. It was very just, it did not have any content, no arcade mode, no story mode yet. Like, it was super bare bones. But now that damn near every character is out, with Luke, now that the mechanics are a lot more fleshed out, I would honestly put it on a good time as well. I do have playing it. I have fun playing it from time to time, but it isn't my favorite Street Fighter game. We'll get to that later. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, this is the first competitive fighting game that I played for a little bit. I know I said that with MK11, but at least with MK11, I spent more than a month playing it competitively. Smash Ultimate is a tricky one for me. Now, personal interactions with people and stuff like that kept it from being really fun. But I'm not going to include that. I'm going to include the amount of time that I put into the game, the amount of time that I put into the online is okay. That's little. The tournament was fun for the most part. No, I totally agree with you, UNV. So although KI2, I'll talk about it in a second. I'll talk about it. So with Smash Ultimate, I am going to put it on very fun. Yeah, yeah. After thinking about it more, I'll put it on very fun because once again, the single player content in it is really good. It isn't as good as Melee and Brawl, but it can keep you occupied for a good amount of time. And honestly, the reason why it's not on a good time is because I made a lot of good buddies because of this game. So, like, some personal things have lifted this game from becoming a good time to very fun. So, now that you mentioned it, there are actually two games in particular, both from the same series, that are not on this list, but I'll go ahead and talk about them right now. So, I'll start with the first one, Killer Instinct Classic, the original one. So if this was on the list, all-time favorite. Because of my childhood, playing it on the Super Nintendo with my cousins, with my brother, we would just sit down in front of the television, spend hours on a single player, or not a single player, but a fighting game arcade for so long just because of this weird looking two-headed ogre with a mallet trying to get past him. And the only real thing that we knew how to do was use Cinder's forward forward 1, the Trailblazer, and that was it. But as I got older, I actually put a lot of time into that game, and I really got to appreciate what it was that it was about. Like a game from the 1990s that needed that spark. It needed something, a reason to come back to the modern era. And yeah, no, I could see that. Like, I used to go to Nickel Arcade a lot, and I remember being so discouraged because of the fact that I went to the Nickel Arcade that was that had a Killer Instinct 2 cabinet, actually. And as soon as I saw that, I ran straight to it. And unfortunately, it wasn't KI2. It was a racing game. And I remember just wanting to leave immediately. I'm like, this is stupid, man. I'm out of here. So on that segue, we'll go ahead and talk about Killer Instinct 2. So Although I have personal fondness for Killer Instinct 1 a little bit more, KI2 was the very first Killer Instinct game that I owned. And on that note, I learned the mechanics in that game a lot quicker than I did with KI1. And oddly enough, the inputs in that game are a lot harder to do than in Killer Instinct 1. But I still had a lot of fun playing it. You know, like the special move counters and all that was broken. But it is very unique because not a lot of fighting games do that. The final boss, Gargos, you know, he's somewhat memorable. I mean, let's be honest, the Killer Instinct bosses aren't amazing, but they're good for the time, especially when it comes to beating the KI1 boss and for some reason getting 1,000 years sent back in time. Um, in some cases, yeah. So yeah, KI2 is also an all-time favorite for me because I have owned the game for about like 22 years. And the fact that it's now on Xbox, that you can play the arcade version of it, oh, so much better. Okay, so on that note, we'll go ahead and, oh, screwed that up. On that note, we'll go ahead and move on to Soul Calibur 2. So this one was also one of the earlier fighting games that I have played. And I did like the uniqueness of some like console exclusive characters, with Spawn being on Xbox, Link being on GameCube, and Heihachi being on PlayStation 2. Now, obviously Nintendo's not going to play ball with adding Link to the Soul Calibur 2 HD Online, but it was cool at least that we got to have Heihachi and also Spawn. And oh yeah, I totally agree. They're making a fourth one. We just don't know when. So Soul Calibur 2, I'll put it on. I'll put it on a good time. I personally love Soul Calibur 2 more than 6 because of the weapon master and stuff that you can do in that game. It's fun. It's fun unlocking all the weapons. Okay, so Under Night in Birth. Fortunately, it's in the same realm as Blade Strangers and Melty Blood. I played it once and don't really have access to play it again, so I was just kind of gonna linger there. Ultimate Marvel 3. Oh, sorry. Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Although this wasn't the one that I grew up playing, that being Street Fighter 2, the new challengers, Super Street Fighter 2. I'm gonna consider this as the overall Street Fighter 2 that I have played. And on that note, I am gonna go ahead and launch this baby up to the moon. All-time favorite, easily. I have nothing bad to say about this game. It was bare bones when it came out, although they got addicted to implementing new versions of the game time and, you know, year after year. The music in this game, man, come on. Almost everybody's music in this is iconic. So we'll go ahead and leave that there. All-time favorite fighting game. Oh, crap, I'm messing it up again. Professional, folks. Garo Mark of the Wolves. So I barely touch it. I own the game on the Xbox, but unfortunately it is dated in some ways. I know that people can have fun playing this game back in the day, but I think the problem with me is that I played it too late. You know, before a lot of these more modern fighting games were easier to pick up and they weren't as jank. You know, they try to focus on keeping a balance and stuff. But still, lore wise, I enjoy the game. I like the idea of Terry essentially adopting the son of the guy he killed, or you know, the guy that killed his dad. Uh, I'm gonna do Injustice 1 first. This one, oh man, that's a tricky one for me. Yeah, I think it's a good time. Injustice 1, I personally, the story mode in Injustice 1 is great. I really enjoyed the idea of Superman basically going rogue, going evil, because of his just terrible, terrible like event that happened with the Joker and his wife. Um, I do hate DC for basically sticking with that storyline on different movies and games and stuff. And I'm like, oh, a bad Superman. That's actually a really good idea. Let's just do it on every single thing, every single product that we come up with. But with this being one of the originators, I enjoy Injustice 1. It was cool that they had Scorpion in it. Um, but I barely played him. I didn't play this game too much outside of the story mode. So we'll go ahead and leave it on a good time. I don't mind going back to this game at all. Injustice 2. Oh boy, this one. So I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I'm actually gonna put it up here. Hold on. I'm gonna put it up here. Injustice 2 story is probably not better than the first one, but I like the gameplay more. Now, I understand that some people would consider a balanced fighting game to be not as fun, but nonetheless, I like the feel of Injustice 2 a little bit more. It felt less jank, and obviously the animations in this game is insane. The supers in this game is so much better than in 1. Let's be honest. And yeah, obviously the character acting in this game in terms of the story mode is a lot better. So a lot of it is really good. The freaking guest characters in this game was a surprise. You got what, Hellboy, Sub-Zero, and Raiden were a little obvious, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like what? But yeah, I have a good time playing this game. Like I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. King of Fighters 13. You know, if it wasn't for Star Deviant, I would probably have never really played an SNK game at all. And to start with this game out of the whole series was tough. But with that being said, toughness can take you places. And because of this game, I come to learn the lore a lot better. With King of Fighters, with Metal Slug, with Samurai Showdown. I'm gonna put it up here. The sprites in this game is one of the best 2D sprites that you'll ever see. And if you think I'm wrong, go to Kim's character, Kim Kaf1. Watch how those pants move. and tell me I'm wrong. But besides the obvious joke there, the supers in this game are satisfying. They are impactful. The combos in this game are super fun, but damn it, are they hard to do when you get to the nitty gritty of it. But once again, super worth it. Probably my favorite King of Fighters game until 15 when we get there. Speaking of King of Fighters, I'll tell you what. Let me do this. I want to separate them. That way, I'm not talking about the same thing over. 2002 UM. This one I spent a little bit of time playing it, but I will also put it on a good time. I have no real issues with this game aside from it just being old. It happens, you know, but it does not mean that I like it any less. So with King of Fighters UM, or 2002 UM, I spent a pretty decent amount of time playing it, but not an incredible amount. I did like the idea of it being kind of a Smash Ultimate scenario where they add almost everybody to the game. But once again, I just unfortunately haven't spent a lot of time in it. So, but I have no problem going back to it. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Like, okay, so they're not on the list, but I'll talk about it. So with like Virtua Fighter, the only time I really played it was when they released the basically the enhanced version of VF5, and I played it for a little bit, but those aren't really for me either. So I get what you mean. I do get that. I have more fun playing Soul Calibur and Tekken than I do with like Virtua Fighter or Dead or Alive, because they do have some jankness to it, but it's not really the kind of jankness that I mess with. Like if I were to think of jank, I would think like Marvel 2. I would think of, I don't know, something like let's see, what's another one that's kind of jank? Hell, Street Fighter 2 is kind of jank, but still, like, I I'm kind of in and out with those as well. So although they're not on the list, I would probably consider VF, the Virtual Fighter series, and the Dead or Alive series on Barely Touch. I played it once, but I might have an interest of playing it down the line. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Now, I don't think that Ultimate Marvel 3 was the first. No, it wasn't. It was the second that I've ever played in the Marvel series. But I'll also put it on a good time. I do like 2 a little bit more than 3. I did like some of the new characters that they added to Marvel 3. And it's not just the Ultimate version, but Marvel 3 as a whole. So like Dante was awesome. Deadpool was, was a funny surprise. Rocket Raccoon was decent. Dormammu, you had characters like them. They're unique, and they added more to the game. So I did enjoy Marvel 3 for that part. It is weird that they didn't really have a story mode. They just did, what was it? They Heralds and Heroes or whatever. Okay, so Mortal Kombat X. This one. Man, like, I think this Mortal Kombat was the first time I really paid attention to an announcement of a Mortal Kombat game. What a way to start, man. Like, seeing the trailer, besides the rap music, which kind of made the trailer feel a little disjointed. Man, the gameplay in this when it was first released was like, damn, game is gonna be brutal. And it was. It definitely was. But this game is probably the most fast-paced Mortal Kombat game besides Mortal Kombat 3. Intentionally so because of the run mechanic. You want to try to zone somebody? I'm gonna run in your face and you're gonna take it. So, because of that, I gotta put MKX on very fun. I enjoy playing this game with Sub-Zero, Predator, Alien, and some Takeda, man. They are just so good. Alright, so Street Fighter Third Strike. Dare I say anything else that isn't blatantly obvious about where this needs to go? Bam. So, Power Rangers. No, I'm gonna talk about it. No, with Street Fighter Third Strike, man, talk about a game nobody expected anything good out of it, or like had no expectations for it. Once again, the music in the game, the characters in the game were hella unique, and the combos in it were satisfying to do. The just, it's a damn near perfect Street Fighter game, man. I If I were to choose between these two, I think Third Strike is personally my favorite Street Fighter game. Like the parry system is so good, and yeah, exactly. Like Moment 37 sold me on this game, and from the thousands and thousands of times that I've tried the Evo Moment 37 like challenge in the online edition, I did it once. It is not easy, but damn, man, like Street Fighter Third Strike really paved the way for a lot of the fighting games that we have today. It kept the fighting game community from dying because of moments like Evil Moment 37. Like the full Daigo parry was iconic. I love it. So, like, I have no issues with Third Strike. Just the fact that, except for the fact that online edition is not on the Series X for whatever reason. All right. So next one, Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. I'm gonna put it on in and out. So with this game is kind of like, what if we brought the jankness from the early 2000s back to the modern day? That's this is what would happen if you had a game that had a lower budget than some of the big ones. And for the most part, I put several hours in this game, and it could be fun. It could be fun learning combos, finding things that work or might not work. So, Power Rangers is definitely fun for the most part, for what it's worth. Now, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Super Smash Brothers, the OG, the one that started it all. So Smash Melee was actually the very first Smash game that I've ever played, but I didn't play it enough to feel separate from the original here. I'll put it on a good time. Honestly, I don't think that there is a Smash game that I've played that I hated. You know, this is very dated, but for the most part, it's just the offline single player content that makes it for me. And obviously with with a game like Super Smash Bros. 1, it doesn't really have a huge fan base. And with it being out in the N64 days, that obviously online wasn't really implemented yet. But once again, the local matches that I have with this game back in the day are incredible. I have a blast playing it every time I play with a group of people. Like, free for all 4 players, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with Classic Smash. Rivals of Ether. This one's on barely touched for me. I don't mess with it too much, just because of the fact that I don't really have access to the game. Would I play it if I did? Absolutely. I wouldn't mind playing this game more, because for an off-brand Smash game, no disrespect, it does have its nice moments. It is weird. I know that people talk about this before, but it is weird that it doesn't have a block button, and yet you could still grab. I don't know. That's always been kind of like, huh? But nonetheless, Rivals of Ether was, for the most part, it had its goods and bads, pros and cons. I'd say one of the most memorable things that I know about this game is just the fact that they added Ori to the game, which is cool. MK9. Alright. So MK9 is my absolute favorite Mortal Kombat game of all time. Bar none. Story mode was insane. I'm playing. I'm in the middle of that actually as we speak. But the characters in the game feels as classic as you could possibly be with the original 3 and Quan Chi for good measure. And the mechanics in the game has its jankness, obviously. But with the jankness becomes greatness in the sense of MK9. I love the movement in the game. It just feels great. The X-rays implemented for the first time, they are painful, and they get even rougher to watch down the line, in a good way. But MK9 is as good as you could get with a Mortal Kombat game. The only Mortal Kombat game to implement tags, like assists. I do wish they bring those back. Whether they have to nerf some of the things that they did with MK9, it doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna get the fun out of having like 2v2s no matter what. And MK9 is no exception. Street Fighter Alpha 3. Now, I'm gonna have to also put this on a good time. Alpha 3, honestly, with the Alpha series in general, I don't have a huge amount of time experience with the games. Mainly just because of the fact that I haven't had access to them until recently. Especially with the 30th anniversary collection. Now, I understand that it's not exactly the best version of the game, but that's the only one that I really have access to. So, as it stands, I'm gonna leave it here on a good time. Crazy roster. But I haven't really sunk my teeth in it as much as I would like to. 98. KOF 98. I am going to put this. Personal feelings aside, I'm going to put it on a good time. Just because of how much I hated Lucky going against Lucky on the arcade and Omega Rugal. But if you know, you know. Anyways, obviously it's dated for its time in terms of mechanics, in terms of movement, in terms of all that jazz. But regardless, it is a great game to play. With me playing 13, with the amount of time that I've really put into it, I'd say that KOF 98 doesn't feel like a stranger. And so with that, I do enjoy playing it from time to time. So I'll leave it at that. Tekken Tag Tournament 1. Now, oh, I noticed there was a particular one missing, but I'll get to that. Tekken Tag Tournament alongside Tekken 4 were the very first two Tekken games that I have played. Now, I don't remember too much about Tekken Tag Tournament, to be honest, because I only remember doing the arcade a few times. So in terms of like the in-game content that it has, I'm not too familiar with it. And so with that, like, I can't really see myself putting it any higher. It sucks to say, but honestly, this game is kind of left behind just because of the second game. But we'll get to that. Now, since we're on the subject of the other one, I was talking about Tekken 4. Now, although Tekken 4 isn't on this list here, from what it looks like, yeah, it doesn't look like it is. Anyways, Tekken 4, I would put it in a good time. Now, I understand that that's probably the dark horse of the Tekken series, and rightfully so, because of the weird slopes in some stages, because of the hills and the, by the trees, and then sometimes going up on the rooftops. Like, that is a weird setting for fighting game stages, but it's unique. It might not be great, but at least it's unique. So honestly, Tekken Force is the reason why I would consider that to be a good time. Chicken. Anyways, Tekken 3. Now, a lot of the old school Tekken fans are gonna hate me for this, but I'm sorry. I just don't have the game. Simple as that. I haven't really played it when Tekken was really at its prime. And it sucks to say, because I'm sure that I know that there is a big Tekken 3 fan base out there that, that love this game, that love playing it, that played Jin back in the day before he took a huge different, like, play style after 3. But canonically speaking, it makes sense. But nonetheless, Tekken 3 is just one of those games where I didn't really spend a lot of time playing it, just because of my lack of accessibility to the game. So, Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS and the Wii U, also known as Smash 4. I think this one is actually the Smash game that I have played the least. And so with that being said, I'm actually going to put on In and Out. Now, I don't have any real gripes with the game. Just, I didn't really play it. Especially when the game came out. For me personally, I was out of country. I couldn't play with anybody else. So I was gone for a really long time around the time that this came out. And so when I played it, it I mean, it was fun for the most part, you know, playing with people like Mega Man, and then obviously you had other guest characters like Cloud and Bayonetta added to the fray. Ryu also. But the unfortunate thing about this game is that it is a victim of time in terms of my preferences. And with that being said, I didn't really have any interest in playing the game, especially around the time that Smash Ultimate was being announced. So that's just a victim of timing. I didn't really have any issues with the game, just the fact that I didn't really play the game a lot. So Street Fighter 4 Ultra, or as we'll just go with SF4 as a whole. That's pretty much how I'm doing these games. Man, I've been going crazy with these good time sections here. But Ultra Street Fighter 4, SF4, sorry. Man, see, the cool thing about the rival fights is that they made you feel like you were actually in a story mode with this game. Like there was one implicated. Obviously, there isn't, but for the most part, it really you really felt immersed with like some of these character interactions and stuff like that. And from what it looks like, KOF 15 might have something like this as well. We'll have to wait and see. But anyways, with Street Fighter 4, yeah, I was in a craze with this game, and it was a blast. I have, I will have no problems getting back to it, and just relearning the stuff that I did back in the day. Except for Seth, he should stay back in time. Anyways, oh, we're down to the final two. Okay. Tekken Tag Tournament 2 is my first time that I really felt like I wanted to learn Tekken. No, that's not true. Tekken 5, technically. I'll talk about that in a second. But Tekken Tag Tournament 2 is my personal favorite Tekken game. I enjoy playing it. I enjoy playing it with people. And Jesus, dude, if the roster in Tag Tournament was crazy, this one just blew it out of the park. Even if it was a few extra more characters, it doesn't matter. It was just damn near everybody that was in the game, man. It was the MK Armageddon of Tekken, but better. Now Tag 2 is, it looks great. It was like the last hurdle of the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 days, but it was a good step, and it's always a blast. Like, I don't recall ever uninstalling my digital copy of Tekken Tag 2 ever since I got it. So, on that note, we'll talk about the one that was another Tekken game that was also not added to this for whatever reason. That being Tekken 5. So, Tekken 5 was the real first Tekken game that I really wanted to learn more about. Even if it was like with one particular character, that being Paul, surprisingly, right? So, with that being said, Paul Phoenix, obviously, like, bare bones character, always mid tier, second fiddle, blah blah blah. But enough of the character. I'm gonna talk about the game. So with Tekken 5, I played it on the PlayStation 2, and you know the I forgot what the version what the mode of the game was. Like the Devil Within. So that was interesting. Like, it was content, but it wasn't amazing content. I don't recall ever finishing the game just because of how bare bones and basic it was. I got bored of that mode relatively quickly, unfortunately. But in terms of the arcade, in terms of like some offline stuff that I do with the game, I do enjoy it. So, for the most part, I'm going to go ahead and consider Tekken 5 to also be on very fun with Tag 2. Like, Tekken 5 is just under Tag 2 in my personal preference. Now, we are here. Grand finale. Grand finale. I have not streamed this game yet. Because of a particular reason. Oh yes. It's going up there. And not only is it going up there, this is probably my favorite video game, not fighting game, video game of all time. And it's more than just the gameplay. It's more than just the characters. I'm going to talk about... I'm going to give you a little bit of history here. So, as I was kind of hinting towards with KI2, or KI1 and 2, I have played Killer Instinct 1 and 2 religiously, man. I enjoyed the combos in the game. Doing the ultra combos on accident, the ultimates, the humiliations on accident was like the biggest WTF you could ever do with a group of people. And be like, how did you do that? Like, we had the luxury of playing Killer Instincts 1 and 2 back in the day where the internet was not where it was today. We didn't really look at cheat codes or anything like that. We figured something out, and if we learned how to do it, we kept that in our heads. And so with that being said, a long period of time of nothing from Rare was just agonizing, man. With how fun these two games were, there was just nothing that were hinting towards another Killer Instinct game, and it killed me. It killed my brother, myself, my cousins, and I'd say like around the 2008, 2009 year, my cousins were obviously joking about like, oh, so I heard about this rumor that there's going to be a Killer Instinct 3 and that the final boss is going to be somebody with 3 heads instead of 2. And obviously I didn't want to believe that, but I'm like, well, this is the only real thing I hear about the game, so I'm just going to keep that in my head for now. But no, like, it's been just long silence, man. See, like, what? Gosh, I couldn't tell you, dude. Like, so once I got to my high school years, I just didn't really think about the game as much anymore. It sucks to say, but it was just true. So I would play it every now and then. You know, obviously focus on school and on everything, and that's just that. But then, around 2013, the middle of 2013, my brother and I decided to go on TV, and we decided to channel browse. It's crazy how coincidental this was, man. But this is true. My brother can absolutely back me up with this. We found something called E3. We had no idea what it was. It was as if we were just fated to pick this channel for this reason. I know it's ridiculous, but this is true. So we decided to go on E3. We watched the convention, and they were advertising the Xbox One. And so we were just checking it out, like, oh, I mean, this looks relatively interesting, so I guess let's see what they're going to do with the new console. Now, they also were, before anything, the first thing we saw was them advertising something called Rise Son of Rome. And my brother and I are kind of just like, well, I mean, sure. We'll give it a look. And the gameplay was okay. It wasn't anything outstanding. We were just kind of going on. And we were going to change the channel because we were kind of just getting bored. And then we saw this green light, this strobe light look on the screen. And then we saw a familiar logo. And sure enough, Killer Instinct was going to be on the Xbox One. And not just that, but just it being announced at E3 that year. The moment my brother and I went on the freaking channel to watch it. My brother and I were losing our absolute shit. Like everything did not matter right now except for this moment. And so we were just jumping on the couch. We were screaming. My mother was so concerned about what was going on in the other room that she checked on us. Man. Talk about fate, man. I was fated to watch that E3 because of the Killer Instinct announcement. Now, what sucks about my situation was that I was unable to actually play the game. We did not have the money to get an Xbox One. And so I went off overseas. And when I finally built up the money that I needed, I immediately got a TV for my dorm. I got an Xbox One, and I had Killer Instinct the moment that I could play it. And so I did. And I did not stop. Like, Killer Instinct 2013 is probably the fighting video game, that I have spent the absolute most amount of time in because of its single player content, because of its characters, because of the story mode, because of the local matches. The online was amazing, but most importantly, it was because of the fucking music. If I were to tell you that Mick Gordon is my absolute musical god, that would be an understatement. The things that he has done for this game is it just cannot be said enough, man. I love everything about Killer Instinct. And it's more than just 2013. Like, people would prefer some of the originals compared to 13. And you know what? That's totally fine. I don't hate you for that. Everybody has their own personal preference. But although it is slower than Killer Instinct 1, for example, the amount of mind games that you could have with the game. You are playing the game when you're in the middle of a combo. It doesn't matter. You're playing the game no matter what. And if you do something that they, if they read your whatever you're trying to do next, you're gonna get punished for it. And you know what? That's what I love about this game. The mental gymnastics, the mental match that happens within the match itself is just incredible. And with that being said, Killer Instinct 2013 is my absolute favorite fighting game of all time. But by all means, whatever your guys' personal preferences are, let me know. I am eagerly curious to see what you guys say, what your guys' interests are. But I'm just going to give you a quick reminder of my personal list here. So as you could tell, I'm not really I'm not really big onto like anime style games, except for maybe Dragon Ball. Uh, but yeah, like some of my absolute favorites I've either played when I was a kid or I enjoy a lot of the mechanics now. And I like my games kind of technical, if that makes sense. And that's the beauty of it. Like RNG style games, you can't really feel like you're improving on it because you get the luck of the draw. But with fighting games like these, you really come to understand that you're the one in charge and you are the one that is improving, that you're the one making these moves. And yes, Solar Host, it is personal for me that Killer Instinct is my absolute favorite because, once again, the music, the characters, the mechanics, and just the ground game you could have in it is amazing. So, okay. Yeah, yeah, and you know what? That's the thing about Smash. Like, the reason why I like the Smash games isn't for those reasons. It's more for the offline content that is within the games. So that's why I personally like those. So yeah, this is my list. Uh, Once again, feel free to set up your own list. What are some games that I forgot to mention that you guys like? So, with that being said, thank you guys for coming over. I do appreciate your attention. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and log off now. Thank you guys very much for watching, and fight on.